Okay, so let's start breaking down some of the specifics, and we'll start with eyes. When we're looking at a relaxed dog, we're looking at soft eyes. And what I mean by that is they might be open, they might be blinking or slightly squinted, but the muscles around the eyes are pretty relaxed. And there's some good examples here. We're not doing anything to like retract or constrict, pull the skin back. There's a little bit of brow furrow here, but not super intense. This guy's eyes are almost fully closed. And you'll notice too, in all of these examples, it's more of an almond, like a sideways almond shape than like a round eye. So I'll show you some examples of what the opposite looks like in a second. But keep in mind as well that if we're working with an animal and not just a still photo, a relaxed dog, an affiliative dog, a calm social dog is probably going to be blinking pretty often and not holding eye contact with you with a hard unblinking eye. When we start to see, we're still in a happy zone, but maybe a little bit of increased arousal, increased focus, that's when we start to see that rounded eye. So you can see this here, and here, as opposed to these more sort of almond shaped eyes. In addition, you might see a dilated pupil. Um, Importantly, you want to pay attention to light conditions. So as you're probably aware, pupils dilate in darkness and tend to constrict in bright light. This is a really well lit, fluorescent lit room. This dog's pupils are not likely to be dilated because of the light conditions. And similar here, Gus's pupils are maybe a little dilated for the light, but probably also just very focused on whatever I was holding in front of him to get the photo, probably a piece of my burger or something like that. Remember, again, blinking is typically a sign of affiliative behavior and social signaling. So if we're seeing a dog that's not blinking often or not kind of breaking eye contact with us, that might be a sign that they are subtly asking us to take a step back. Similar to the previous slide, we've still got rounded eye shape here. We've still got dilated pupils. Um, when we start to look at more stressed and potentially fearful dogs, it'll come with a little bit of tension in the muscles around the eyes. So the eyes are wider. You can see here the furrowing of the brow in Minnesota's face is a little bit more notable. Each of these guys have dilated pupils. It's a little hard to see because most of their, I think, yeah, actually everybody's irises are brown. So it's a little hard to see from the difference with the black pupil. Whale eye is something to keep in mind as well. And this is a like one piece of data in a broad context of all the things that a dog might be telling you, but this can be a really good sign that the dog is feeling uncomfortable. Whale eye means that the dog's muzzle and eyes are pointing in different ways. And the way that we came about the term whale eye, I say we as if like I named it, but it's something that I was taught and that someone else was taught and someone else was taught. But commonly, my understanding is that the term whale eye comes from what it looks like if you watch a whale watching a school of fish. So the whale's body and face don't move, but the eyes track the fish. And as the eyes move from left to right, up to down, whatever, you see more of the sclera. That's the white of the eyes. And that's kind of that indicator that whatever the dog or the whale or animal is facing with their body is not necessarily what they're choosing to focus their eyes on. And in these cases here, these are dogs who are slightly uncomfortable with what they're looking at. So Doggo here is slightly leaning away. We can even see a little bit of that backward weight shift. His nose is pointing in one direction. His eyes are focusing in one direction. Same thing with Ronnie, slight whale eye with Minnesota. So whale eye is kind of like take with a grain of salt thing. Yes, you will absolutely see dogs look out the side of their eye when they are not fearful, but this is a good thing to be aware of. Opposite of dilated pupils are constricted or pinpoint pupils. And again, we're looking at this specifically out of context of light conditions. So you can say it looks like it's a pretty bright winter day here. That could be contributing to why the pupils are constricted. It could also be that this animal is very focused. And I think this is actually technically a wolf, not a dog, but some of these things with the predation sequence are pretty similar. So in addition to the constricted pupil, there are some other things that we can look at about this wolf's body language that tell us that they may be very focused on what's in front of them. So not all of this we've talked about yet, but the ears are pricked up and forward, body weight is kind of leaning forward, tail is down, mouth is closed, the whole body is kind of oriented in one direction. In addition, opposite of soft eye is hard eye. And I found the best way to operationalize this, especially when we're working with shelter dogs, especially when we're working with shelter dogs that we don't really know very well, um, is unbroken eye contact for more than 2 seconds. And if you've ever had a dog stare at you like this for more than 2 seconds, you know that it feels like a lot longer of a time. And so when we see that, that's going to be our cue to kind of lessen the intensity of the interaction, whether that means we step out of the room briefly, we create a little bit of space with the leash, we squeak a toy and toss it away from us, we toss food, but whatever it is, we want to try to break that concentration in a kind of low stress and safe way. All right, let's shift gears to ears. And ears are hard. I find ears to be very individual. And, going back to a couple of slides ago with like body adjustments, if a dog has cropped ears, that kind of changes what they look like. A lot of dogs haven't had cosmetic adjustments, but their morphology based on their lineage and their genetics is just different from individual to individual. And this is a good example. So this is Yoshi, and his ears are sort of naturally up and pricked as opposed to Gus, who has floppy ears. And then, spoiler alert, this is not a dog. I just thought it was a cute picture that I had forgotten I had taken of a crochet project I was working on a while ago. And this is Mimi the snail, and she has very cute ears. So, anyway, what can be helpful for me when I'm looking at ear position is to imagine what the back panel of the ear looks like. And I'll try my best to explain because it's a little hard to imagine in the photo where you can't see the backs of their ears. But for Yoshi here, his ears are up, but they're also kind of like rotated forward, but not all the way forward, right? Like there's not a ton of, I just started to like touch the screen like you could see what my hand was doing. I'm so sorry about that. There's not a lot of bunching in the brow here. And then when we look at Gus, if we imagine what the backs of his ears look like, it's actually probably quite similar to Yoshi. So they're still sort of forward, but not up and forward. And then the difference is the ear shape. So Gus's ears flop forward. They don't actually ever prick all the way up like that. Opposite with Yoshi, his ears don't flop forward. So when we're looking at lots of different ear shapes, I find trying to think about what the back of the ear is doing, that kind of back panel of the ear can be a little bit more of an objective way to read it than when you're trying to decipher like, okay, this dog's ears are cropped, but I don't know what they would look like if they weren't cropped, right? So in general, erect ears, forward facing, not overly scrunched in the forehead. This is an alert and interested dog. They're probably kind of game for whatever you're about to do. Airplane ears is something we see a lot in the shelter world and with some of our pups who struggle with stress on walks out and about in the neighborhood. This is when the ear panels are rotated inward so that the ears are facing out. So sometimes you'll see a little bit of extra bunching here. Sometimes they're sort of like back and rotated out. Sometimes they're just really rotated out without a lot of pulling back. This picture here of Ramses gives us a good example. It's not a great photo quality, but you can see what a cropped ear looks like with that back panel. It's actually very similar to what this floppy ear looks like, just without the extra cartilage, obviously, because the ears are cropped. So this can be a sign that they're a little unsure about their environment, they're nervous, maybe there are lots of sounds and they're just kind of trying to get acclimated to the space. If the ears are flicking back and forth, like sometimes you'll see a dog with one ear forward, one ear to the side, they might be focusing on something in front of them, but also picking up on a weird sound that's happening on the side. So this isn't necessarily something that you need to like intervene immediately on if you notice airplane ears, but it's just a good data point of hey, he might not actually be as comfortable as I'm thinking he is in this moment.